Hi, this is Mayor Yerion Velliai from Tirana, Albania, and I'm so delighted that all of our friends in Sofia have convened to talk about very important issues concerning our cities. I wish I could be there. It has been an incredible time in Tirana and also a very, very busy moment. But I promise to come back to Sofia, but this time it will have to be from a long distance, a virtual hug to all of you, and I wish you a wonderful conference. First and foremost, I really want to wish Vasil Terziev, the new mayor of Sofia, the best of luck. It is one of the most rewarding jobs in the planet to be a mayor, but it's also one of the most stressful and difficult jobs. So I wish you very well, my friend, for yourself as you lead the city, the great city of Sofia, and to the amazing people that live in Sofia. Now, Ogi, if you are ready, I'm also ready for the questions. And then, again, I will promise to be back in Sofia and do this in person next time. Oh, that's a very good question. We were once the worst place to live in the Balkans, one of the dirtiest and the most polluted cities in southeastern Europe. But I'll tell you how we got to that worst point before I tell you how we got to one of the top performers in terms of environmental and air quality in the region. Well, as you know, we lived under the most brutal communist regime. So for 45 years, cars were forbidden. I remember growing up in the city of Tirana that if a military truck was going by, or one of the wood supplies, or one of the kindergarten food trucks, we would race so we can get a free ride from the back of a truck. The cars were so rare in that time, and most people walked and biked, and this was the normal way to get around Tirana, or public transport, not a private car. Now, with the fall of communism, having private property was one of the ways to measure success. And in the new capitalist system, the more you have and the bigger things are, the more you have done and achieved in life. So for most Albanians who left as immigrants, myself included, to neighboring Greece and Italy, but also to Germany and France and everywhere else, coming back with a car, with an automobile, was one way to show your neighbors the trophy of capitalism. You're not a poor communist anymore. You're not a dirty refugee, but you now own a car. And now you have the comforts of capitalist society. Although it meant that for most people, using the car for short trips, like to the bakery store or to the coffee house, was now being done by car instead of by walking, like we did it forever. Now, we calculated that in Tirana at the time, in 2015, we took 800,000 trips a day, out of which 400,000, so half of the trips, were less than 1 kilometer. In a city that is a Mediterranean weather, beautiful sunshine, very flat, at least 80% of the city is not on the hills, it's actually on the valley, and therefore treating the car as a status symbol and replacing downtown the statues of communist dictator with now the automobile, who's the new occupant and the new epicenter of public life, was a dramatic thing to see. So the question is, how do you change this habit that was created over the last 30 years of transition? Well, initially you start with some very, very small steps. What we call the easy picking fruit. So we don't close all of downtown, but we organize once a month a car-free day. So people, but especially kids, can have a taste. Now, I was getting the middle finger from all of the drivers, of course, virtually and physically. But then the children started coming home for the car-free day. And they said, well, look, Dad, the bike that you bought me 5 years ago that I could never use, I could use it downtown Tirana because the mayor shut down all the cars. And scooters and skateboards. So it became slowly an advocacy process, not by politicians, but by children, because you are always suspicious of a politician, but you're not suspicious of your own child. So having all these kids participate in these dinner table conversations and tell their parents, no, the mayor is not a communist taking away the cars. He's just giving us space. And in the beginning, this was not a serious business because people said the mayor is completely a joke. He's dealing with children. Children don't pay taxes. They don't vote. It is true. Children may be non-voters. They don't pay taxes. They're probably 30% of the population, but they're 100% of the future. 100% of the future. So if you think in those terms, having this different frequency, instead of a politician telling the people what to do, having their own kids explain the joy of living in a car-free downtown or enjoying these quality public spaces made a huge difference. So sometimes we have to have different advocates, different communicators, rather than the typical political talk from the bully pulpit of a politician, mayor, prime minister, or president. Now, once these changes started gaining some consensus, then we made them permanent. So now we boast one of the largest car-free downtowns in the region, 100,000 square meters square for public events, from New Year's and Christmas markets to Dua Lipa and Rita Ora to all kinds of parades and events, sometimes multiple in the same time, has given us a huge impetus to do even more. So what started as a children's business became a very serious business of playgrounds, of kindergartens, or of nurseries, because I think when you start operating like you do in your family, and all of our families, I know many Bulgarians grew up in difficult times, and so did we. But even in those difficult times, the family said, we're going to take care of the weak, so of the grandparents and of the babies and the children. And if a city thinks like a family and prioritizes them first, then you've not only won the present, you've also won the future. And I think the bottom line is, do we only obsess about the next election, or do we also worry about the next generation? So in that spirit, then we started a huge tree planting mobilization, where every child plants a tree for their birthday, and we call them birthday trees. So it's one way to make up for the finances that we don't have, but if every kid in the classroom is planting a tree, then it's a matter of time before everybody's birthday is celebrated by planting a tree. So if a city has 170,000 children in all the school systems, and they all plant trees, then you can see how we were able to plant 1 million trees in this last 8 years, and we want to plant another 1 million in the next 4, calling this the orbital forest. Now, some habits from communism, people are not nostalgic. They're not nostalgic of the food lines. They're not nostalgic of getting a permission from the party to move or to buy household items. But there are some things that they are nostalgic. The fact that everybody was biking and walking, and there was very little traffic. So we used and we reclaimed a lot of these habits. For example, these beautiful protected bike lanes. If you just put some paint, that's like bike washing. It doesn't really work. It's not safe. But if you are in Tirana at 3 a.m., like the big party we had last night, and if you can see women on miniskirts out of a disco or a pub or a party at 3 a.m. on their bike, that is a validation that we've done the right thing. Because women, children, the elderly are the people who get most bullied from public life. Because the man with big cars, you always push the weaker one out. But once these lanes are safe, once the city is lit, once the city is clean, then you can do some pretty amazing things with infrastructure. So again, some of this stuff, of course, get a lot of debate. We've had huge protests against the square, against these playgrounds, including against the bike lanes. But I tell everybody on the car, imagine if every biker that you see, that you think is taking your space, if that person was also on the car. You think the waiting line would be longer at the street light? For sure. So even for drivers, seeing bikers as allies is very important in this transformation of the logic. And then we discovered that we're not good at everything. So for things like cleaning up the city, we called on some best practices. So we created a public-public partnership between the city of Tirana and the city of Verona and Vicenza in Italy to create a local cleaning company where we do our own recycling, where we teach kids how to recycle, where we do special collection. And it's been incredible. If you open some of the air apps, Tirana in very short years has moved from one of the dirtiest places to absolutely the cleanest capital of the Western Balkans. No, look, for a lot of these issues, there's grand projects everywhere, and there's nothing new under the sun, as they say in the Old Testament. Everything has been done before somewhere. But I think that the biggest project is changing mentality. So when people ask me, what is the most difficult project? Was it transforming the water utility or cleaning up the city or planting the trees? I always say, look, the biggest project is this 10 centimeters. Having these 10 centimeters changed can then change a lot of policies, and money is a detail. There's so many banks and so many ways to crowdsource, and there's so many loans and grants from development agencies out there. Now, we're not part of the European Union, but what we realize is how to do more with less. And the way this works is that changing people's mentality cuts a lot of the cost. So we start working already at a very, very young age It's mandatory in all of Tirana's kindergarten that kids learn how to bike. And we have a professional biking school that is open, every day in the several parks. But we also go to each elementary school and kindergarten to teach kids how to bike. Things on food waste. In a lot of our kindergartens, we have like mini farms where children farm their own food, and they understand that they can only, or they should only consume what they actually need and not produce extra waste. We decided to put a ban on plastic bags that cannot be recycled. And if you need a thick plastic bag that can be recycled, it's going to cost you extra money. So automatically, people went to the old habit that we used to have during the old days, where everybody brings their cloth bag or their net bag to the supermarket, and therefore it has cut unnecessary pollution. So rather than finding money for the extra waste, let's produce less waste that we can afford with the money that we do have. The issue of the orbital forest that I mentioned, not only the children, but people do it for anniversaries, and people do it for, to remember a grandfather out of respect. So finding ways that the community puts roots, not only metaphorically, to say I have roots in Sofia, I have roots in Tirana, I have roots in the Balkans, but physical roots, the roots of your own tree that pretty much grows with you and your family, and you can take care of it throughout your life cycle. And I think in this regards, I am creating a lot of public plazas with no cars, making sure that the bike lanes provide an efficient micro-mobility option for those who are doing small distances. And then now increasing our fleet of electric taxis. People say, how can Tirana have the most electric taxis as a percentage in all of the Southern Europe? And they probably think that we subsidize them. No, we don't. We just changed the rule. If you are waiting for a taxi medallion, you can wait for 5 or 6 years with your diesel car. But if you bring an electric car, you can get a license in 24 hours. So we used our administrative agglomeration of the metropolitan area and the free taxi licenses to immediately bring a supply of electric taxis. So people prefer to much better bring a cleaner car rather than wait for 5 or 6 years until a diesel taxi license was available. So I think out there, common sense should not be replaced by gadgets and smart city and extra machinery. Sometimes working on these 10 centimeters and thinking of creative ways that don't cost money but reduce the cost that we already have may be ways that one can try. And if it works in Tirana, it should be able to work everywhere, because we started from the bottom, and we've made enough progress to validate some of these ideas. Well, look, it's a good point. Nothing can be done until someone does it. And I think this is the history of humankind. Now, I recall from your previous question, you addressed the issue of water. We used to waste 70% of our waters. Even the car washes were working with potable water. People who had moved from everywhere in the crazy transition of the 90s were literally puncturing holes in the water pipe. Until we came to this administration and we said, well, wait a minute, this is an asset. People will probably end up, after oil, going to wars for water. We have cities like Cape Town or Athens, who declare day zero when it comes to their water sources. So we started investing in very, very safe water systems and very disciplined when it came to those who were abusing with this amenity. And many people said, no, you will never be able to do it. But you can, if you show that you treat everyone equal. If you say, no, but so-and-so is from my party, so it's okay that he can have a car wash and waste all of the potable water. But this guy, because he's my opponent, I'm just going to crack on him. That will not work. If you are fair, it's like paying taxes. No one wants to pay taxes. But, even in Japan or in Kigali or in Buenos Aires. But, if they see that everybody does it, then they cannot be an exception. I think people don't obey the rule of law if the rule of law picks sides and does not treat everyone equally. So in that sense, disciplining some of these sectors has been important. Second, people should feel they participate. These days we're discussing the budget. As soon as I'm done with this event, I will be going to a big gym hall, to a big playground, where people from the community will have to see what's in the budget for their neighborhood and for their school and for their children and for their microcosm, because not everybody lives in the central square of Tirana and Sofia. 90% of the time, people spend in their own neighborhood. So while we are thinking about major schemes, they're probably thinking just of a little bench or a little domino table. So participating in this process is important. And when people say, well, look, the mayor took the time, he told me about this budget, I told him we don't need an extra bench, but we need a chess table. And he listened, and they can correct that budget because it's pretty much the same amount. It gives people feeling that they are little mayors, mini mayors, in their own little part of town. Because the city, to me, is 1,250 square kilometers. The city to them is the 1,000 square meters around their little block. So in a sense, you have to tailor-make this suit that fits that person's needs and that family's need. The other thing is how to turn crisis into opportunities. The Chinese have two strokes for the word crisis. One stroke means danger. The other stroke means opportunity. So in danger, there is opportunity. During the pandemic, we were able to do the most bike lanes because all the no-sayers, the naysayers, they were busy in the quarantine, staying inside, so we could easily move with the plan of the bike lanes. The same thing during our terrible earthquake in 2019. The terrible earthquake destroyed a lot of public institutions like schools and other infrastructure, but we were able to get them better and to use also public-private partnership where we pay with installments through several years, but we have immediately 40 schools, bigger and better than the ones we had before the earthquake, and use the opportunity to rebuild to also think of this 15-minute city, to make sure that we build things not as they were, but with a new idea that people can have the services without having to come necessarily downtown. And this has been a great example of turning a crisis into a big opportunity. Look, although I say money is not the most important thing, but it is still important. I mean, the Holy Spirit will not plant the trees and do the bike lanes and build the schools, for sure. But all I'm saying is that one has to get creative. You have two choices. So we're not eligible for EU infrastructure funds. So our two choices are either to complain and to whine about it, but there's nothing you can do until you eventually join. And I think Albania will be probably the first to join in the Western Balkans with the progress it has made. Or the other option is to just get creative and then use whatever resources you have. For example, with the orbital forest, the majority of the trees have been planted by the people. Of course, we've done the work to show them what are the 10 typologies of trees that go into that park and the exact GPS location. And of course, our team will come and dig the hole. But the kids will pick a tree from the menu, depending on what the family can afford. And they will come and show up, and it will be their tree, and they will take care of it in case there's a storm, in case there's a drought. So to have almost 1 million trees contributed by the people without having to spend the city's modest resources has been an incredible story. And then, of course, we work with groups that represent different cities. So, for example, on the water utility, we work with the city of Budapest. On illumination, we work with the city of Florence. With the cleanup, we work with the city of Verona. With urban planning, we work with the city of Milan. So in that regard, we look at our immediate partners, see what they're doing. With BRT, we're looking at Curitiba and Bogota. So sometimes examples are very, very far away, not as close as our immediate neighborhood. So you find out, for example, that, of course, Bogota and Brazil are also not in the European Union, and will never be because it's a different continent. But they realized they could not afford the metro, but the bus rapid transit was much cheaper, and it was like a metro on rubber rather than on rail. So we're thinking, let's do that. And maybe a donor or a development bank like the KfW and GIZ will help us some grants, some loans for something that is affordable and we can pay as a loan rather than for something that, a kilometer, I don't know, in Sofia probably the same. It's 250 million euros a kilometer and 2 stations of a metro. So to make up for those, we're looking at examples and partnering with creative cities everywhere. And it's paid off, absolutely. Yeah, look, it's a very hot topic here as well. Although we win, it's my third and final mandate with an absolute majority, first round, of course. It's a big debate, not only during the campaigns, but every day. Because, the famous phrase, not in my backyard. Like, who wants another building in front of their own building? Well, question number one is it really your backyard, or is it someone else's private property who also have the constitutional right to develop? Second, since we don't have the metro and we can't afford mass transit from huge distances, maybe going vertical and killing more air than killing more agricultural space is a solution. Now, of course, if you build vertical, ugly, Soviet-style buildings, you have contributed nothing. You've done it worse. But if you do international competitions, and some of the top architects from the world come to Tirana to compete for these high-rises that are beautiful, aesthetic, many of them, especially the recent one with this administration, zero carbon, carbon-neutral buildings, bringing new technologies for the facade and for the ventilation, for the solar system, for the way they treat their waters and their waste. Tirana has seen an incredible transformation. We're not building high-rises, skyscrapers. We're building cultural monuments. And Tirana is now the largest open laboratory of architecture. Groups like Bjarke Ingels and Henrik Larsson, Ma Yongsong, mad architects, Stefano Boeri, Marco Casamonti, Mario Cucinella, some of the leading, MVRDV, OMA, the Pyramid of Tirana went through a huge transformation. This is all creative ideas that, sure, we have to accommodate 25,000 people that move to Tirana every year. We're one of the fastest growing cities in Europe in terms of percentage of our own population, 3% every year. So it automatically means 8,000 new living units. It's a no-brainer. And if you don't keep up with the space, then you will have people either building illegally or squatting in the streets, or sleeping in the parks or in the pavements. So I ask the critics, okay, maybe you don't like another high-rise in someone else's property, but do you like Tirana to see people sleeping everywhere in the park? Oh, no, we don't like that. But you like, people building illegally and started adding more floors in your current building? Oh, no, we don't like that either. Well, I said one way to do it is to have an urban plan that keeps up with the demand of the city for family housing, and rather have the city control the growth than the growth go out of control. So that has been the philosophy. It's been a winning philosophy. I mean, look, bottom line for me and for the mayor of Sofia and for everyone, this is not Miss Albania or Miss Bulgaria. You don't have to be liked by everyone. Your job is to make decisions. And I tell my staff, our job is not to please everyone. Our job is to serve everyone. And once we serve everyone, eventually people will understand the purpose of our decisions. Oh, the biggest achievement? I said it, I think I said it before, it is 10 centimeters. Now, am I happy with all the public works and the major transformation of the city? Absolutely. But I think the legacy of our administration and the innovation and modernization has been the transformation of this 10 centimeter mentality. Our mentality is more European. We care more about the environment. We care more about, child-friendly cities. We care more about the city that we leave to the next generation. And having become more responsible, I think, has been one of our best achievements. The rest, history will show. Some architecture survives, some doesn't. So history will have to sort of decide on that. But one thing I can say for sure is the transformation of the mindset of the people behaving European, feeling these values of living together and sharing together has been incredible. Thank you so much, and I really hope to see you in Tirana very soon. It has been a boom of tourism, but we are looking forward to more friends from Bulgaria and Sofia in particular. Thank you so much.